Viewers, and YouTubers, this is Gaturks, and this is my review of Disney's Oz, the Great and Powerful. This story basically is the story of a plain man who becomes a wizard simply because he believes in himself and because of the belief of other people believing in him as well. And because of his talents and skills, he was able to pull out being something so much greater because people believed in him. Now, I never saw Wicked, but I think that the people who would get the biggest kick out of this movie are the people who never saw the story of Wicked. And I would say that Disney gave, I guess, a weird homage by announcing boldly that I am not wicked. Now, speaking of homage, I think the movie gives a great homage to both of the scarecrows from both The Wiz and The Wizard of Oz by having a African-American citizen of Oz announce that he knows how to make scarecrow suits. But at the same time, when you see the scarecrow suits that he offers, it's the replica of, or one that looks very similar to the one in the original Wizard of Oz. So the whole thing with African-American Oz citizen and making scarecrow suits that looks like the original Wizard of Oz, I don't know. I'm just going to say homage. It just gave homage. I'm going to leave it at that. The best and only way to see this movie is in IMAX 3D. No questions, hands down. You have to see this movie in IMAX 3D simply because it's the first movie that I've seen that really utilizes a special advantage of having an IMAX screen. When it comes on, like for the very first 10 minutes, it does this wonderful homage to the original film by being in black and white before it becomes color. But however, you know, now we have color, and we've always had color, but now we have 3D and we have IMAX 3D. So it utilizes that very cleverly. What happens is it starts off in a 4.3 aspect ratio, which is total classic to the original because the whole movie, the original was in a 4.3 ratio aspect. But while they're using the 4.3 aspect ratio, what they do is, because the screen is smaller, actually the size are smaller, and since the rest of the screen is black and the theater is black, they still utilize that black portion of the 4.3 aspect ratio by still having 3D objects go past that black part. So it looks as if the objects are clearly coming out of the picture. Now, they don't do it a lot, but when they do it, it works, it's done well, and I was completely shocked. At first, I thought it was one of those brain things that happened, but then the person who was watching it with me was like, wait a minute, that looked like it just flew out the screen, and it did. And it's simply because they absolutely utilized the 4.3 ratio the way it should have been done. Now, I don't know if people are going to start doing that now, but it was a really shocking effect, and it was pretty cool. Like I said, they don't use it a lot, but when they do use it, it's done very well. And then of course, when it comes to the part where he is actually in Oz, what ends up happening is that it opens up the whole experience to the IMAX theater. So I would say hands down, you have to see it in IMAX 3D. So definitely check out that, if nothing else, just for that. Another thing that I really liked about this movie was the fact that they gave you a really special little twist when he first arrives to Oz and he meets the witches. It's a clever little Terminator 2 thing that happens. It kind of leaves the audience kind of thinking and believing a certain thing, but it's not really what it is. So I thought that was really cool. And it gave a tremendous backstory to everything that you saw in The Wizard of Oz. Now, of course, there are no red slippers, ruby red slippers, so you can't expect to see that, but I would believe that that's a story all on its own, and so they kept that special for The Wizard of Oz. But Warner Brothers, they have authorization to only use that. They have the rights to the ruby red slippers, so Disney couldn't use a lot of the things. But when I looked at the story and looked at how visual it was, I don't even think that I even thought twice about the ruby red slippers. But everything else was so visually appeasing. Aesthetically, it was just like reading a book that was very descriptive, and when you're reading that book you can see everything. Well, they kind of did everything a certain way to where it was just very descriptive and aesthetically pleasing to the senses, and it was funny where it should have been funny. And then it, of course, since it's a family film, it had these little cute and cuddly parts that kind of tugged on your heartstrings, but it was all done really well. It's a great family film, but I would say that it's a bit scary well, some scenes are kind of scary, and I can see that if you were taking it, like maybe children, that they would probably be afraid in certain parts, especially if you go see it in IMAX 3D, because the sound is so huge. So I do want to make mention of The Witch. Now, The Witch is classic. We know who she is, we know what she's about, we know that she's powerful, we know she's wicked. But in this film, when you have an iconic villain like the Witch of The Wizard of Oz, you kind of have to get it right. I'm not quite sure that they pulled it off, but it just gave you a background story. I think they did the best they could. To see her face not as slim as in the original, it kind of throws you off a little, but over the years, people change, and so this is supposed to be a younger version of the one that we're so used to, so, I guess you're not supposed to look altogether the same. But I was a bit thrown off by the way she looked. I don't know why that was, and I'm not sure I bought into her character and how she portrayed the witch. And the voice was slightly different, but again, when you're younger, you're not going to be the same as when you're older. So we are familiar with the older green witch. But I didn't like the fact that the way they made her wicked, they could have given us a stronger storyline behind that, or given us something more believable. It was just something that it just seemed like they just threw something at us real fast and expected for us just to kind of go along with that, but I didn't. And so I think they could have done a better job of explaining that. So now we are, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I just think they could have done better. Yeah, I love the fact that we got a chance to see Emerald City in a way that we have never seen it before. In fact, the forest, all the popular spots were there. The poppy land, or whatever it is, it was there. It just really gave great homage, and you were able to see the yellow brick road and the hills. It just really fit well. So if you were to go back and see the original Wizard of Oz, it would totally make sense. This movie kind of resembles to me what happened in The Thing. You could clearly tell that it was someone who actually loved the classic cult movie The Thing, and they did their own. So when you watch the two, if you're familiar with the original, it was like a perfect homage to it. So I thought it was really creative, I thought it was really fun, I thought it was fresh, and they pulled out a few stunts that I didn't expect, and I thought that it kept it going pretty well. Bit long, but they pulled it off. I've seen a lot of movies, but this is one that really utilizes every aspect of the IMAX experience. So I highly rate it, and I hope that you get out and see it, and it was a lot of fun. So go check it out. This is Gaturks, and I'll see you guys next time.